Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached, and I'm here to review the movie Uncharted. If you end up enjoying this full review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. The first will head you over to my Discord, the second to my Patreon, third to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated, help keep the channel alive, and can even make me play certain video games, or review certain movies, if that is something you are to be desired of. With that being said, shilling will be retold at the end of this review. And with shilling out of the way for now, let's get into Uncharted the movie. So, just a little bit of backstory in terms of getting to this discussion again, because every time there's a video game movie that comes out, of course, this discussion is always going to come up, and that is all video game movies are bad. This is a notion that has existed in the past. I've never believed it, as it has not been proven objectively true by anyone who's ever tried to make that video. I mean, unless you're exclusively talking about live action adaptations of video games, because I know the Resident Evil movies, the ones I remember seeing, the animated ones, were good, at least from what I remember. There was Sonic the Hedgehog, which, you know, that was fun, and yeah, while not the most faithful to the video game, it was still one of the most appreciated for what it did, in terms of, you know, redoing the character. A lot of people argue about Silent Hill, the first one, as a good movie or not. I'm on the side of, from what I remember from that movie, I remember it being objectively solid. And, you know, so the discussion has been there for a while, and I feel like, yeah, while there's plenty of objectively bad video game movies, you're never gonna catch me saying all video game movies are bad, is the point, because I'm a bit more seasoned when it comes to looking into these video game movies. I look at all of them. I don't just say, I don't phrase it as all video game movies are bad, even though, that can be proven wrong. I'm not one of those content creators. Anyway, with that out of the way, I will say in terms of video games, Uncharted is one I haven't technically touched, which I think actually does do different things whether or not you've played the game or not. Of course, I think one of the key aspects of that is that if you have played the video game of any particular, one that is turned into a movie, you kind of get the expectations of, like, oh, how much of the video game is going to be in the movie. Like, say, the newer Resident Evil movie. Like, yeah, technically the beats followed both Resident Evil 1 and 2, technically speaking, yes, but everything else in that movie is terrible, so adaptation alone, I don't think saves a video game movie from being good. You still have to put work in beyond just adaptation. That is one thing I will say. The other thing, obviously, is I'm here to be as objective as possible. That means pointing out when things are good, when they are good, and pointing out things when they are bad, to be bad. And on top of all of that, throughout the review, if there are any points in any review where I feel like I can relay any wisdom on people who might want to become better writers, or better movie makers, or better video game writers, or whatever, I try to throw in some advice here and there throughout these reviews, so that's something to keep out for in these. So without playing Uncharted, I do technically understand what they're supposed to kind of be in the vein of. Indiana Jones. They even mention that in this movie, that it's sort of like an Indiana Jones-esque type movie. And it definitely does have that vibe to it. Uncharted, I think, is still a exclusively PlayStation game or series. I think so. I could be wrong on that. Again, I haven't played them, so I'm not entirely sure upon that. But anyway, we're here to talk exclusively now about the movie, and whether or not this one is objectively good or not, or somewhere in the middle. So let's start with the beginning of the plot, with that all preamble out of the way. So we start at a museum with two brothers, Nathan and his older brother Sam, who seem to be in a museum of sorts, getting ready to steal a map for some treasure that they can, live their lives out to their fullest. And they seem to be relatively young. However, they get caught in the process and brought up to their room. Sam moves away and gives this ring to his brother Nathan. Nathan Drake, for those who know that character name, the main character of the Uncharted, played by Tom Holland. Obviously, this movie is also supposed to be sort of like a prequel to the video games, or like a how this character came to be. So in regards to that, all I can say is I don't know how much of that is in the video game. I'm just going to say what is good here and what is bad here to what I see in the movie. So whether or not that connects to the video game is irrelevant to this movie review. Just keep that in mind. So anyways, as he makes his way out, he holds out a note that his brother writes, and he lights up the other half to see this paper burn trick. I guess they have that type of paper with them. A little bit convenient, as it does help them later on in the movie as well. Anyway, we cut to present-day New York, where we see that he's attending and works at a bar, and he seems to be relatively good at it from the presentation. He's one of those professional, he shakes the drinks around and does that. I don't know if that has an official name to it other than a bartend that does the whole trick thing. Anyway, he talks to this lady very briefly, but he's more interested in taking her jewelry just to sell it for money. However, we're introduced to our secondary character, Sully, played by Mark Wahlberg, who takes the thing that he just took after talking to him, even though I'm pretty sure those two didn't interact in a way where it seemed credible. I will give that one a little bit more suspicion than the first one. At least with the jewelry theft of the girl, we kind of see him approach. With Sully, I don't think there was ever an approach. I'm not sure how he got his hands on it, question mark. I could be wrong. I could have missed or overlooked when it happened, but point being, I'm pretty sure it didn't happen. But he just has it now. Anyway, he's given a card, Nate is. And so, Nathan, as I'll call Nate for short, makes his way to where Sully has moved to, which is this little room. He seems to be in the possession of various things. Nate is getting ready to steal certain of it, but then he comes across the map we saw at the beginning of the movie, unless one that looks equivalent to it. Excuse me. So, he talks about his interest in this map and the past that it holds within. And while he's alone, he looks over some postcards and the pictures that his brother had sent him. And with that determination of wanting to find out what happened to his brother more so than anything else, he signs up with Sully. Thus begins probably what I would consider one of the quickest montages I think I've ever seen of him training, working out, or working at his job, and then looking into Sully's background very briefly. This montage, again, is really, really fast. They're just trying to move past that part. Anyway, they hang at the bar after the fact, and Sully talks about having a previous partner, this young woman named, actually I don't know what her name is. I know what the other woman's name is, Chloe, this young black-haired woman that ends up like somewhat on their team, but like somewhat like mistrusting of them. And then there's this first woman that they talk to, however, this bald woman whose name I'm not sure is, I'll just call her the main villain because that's what she ends up becoming in the movie. So for simplicity's sake, we can understand what I'm referring to. Anyway, while they start their little first key sabotage, they're trying to get this key that will gain them access to this whole thing that they're trying to get to. So they end up in a auction where it is Nate's job to turn out the lights and Sully's job to essentially take it while the lights are off. However, things do not go accordingly. When he first sneaks off, first he makes an odd mistake of saying hello as if it's a terrible horror movie trope, which I find odd. Why would you, if you're sneaking around, why would your first inclination to be to not even whisper, but just like, hello? It's a very odd mistake to make on his part. Even though there's no one currently back there for whatever reason, he ends up getting attacked regardless. And he begins to hang on the roof. And that doesn't go well as eyes start to catch up on him, and Sully puts on one of the uniforms to gain him access to the key. And so the main bad guy tries to stop him, Sully, but she is stopped by some guards as well as he, Sully, and but he has the uniform that seems to gain him access to the key. So Nate has to get off on his own, so they both end up back in the same car anyway. So that was a little bit convenient for them that they both managed to get there. So anyways, they head to Spain, and you see the little traveling thing of like the map transition, and that's very Indiana Jones. I don't want to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure Indiana Jones was the first movie to use that little trick of like, oh, we're just traveling to that location and we're using the little arrow or like line to show the travel. I'm not sure if that's the case. I don't know. I can't think of a movie before that used that technique, but whatever. Anyway, point being, they meet again their another previous partner, Chloe, who ends up trying to also pass on the key to herself, and she seems to be on her own team, at least for the same for different reasons. So we cut to our main bad guy. I believe this is Antonio Banderas. It doesn't say his name on the poster, but the guy in the middle. It looks like Antonio Banderas, and that's who it was. Anyway, I'll just call him the main bad guy for now. The woman beneath him on the posters, who turns into the main bad guy later in the movie. But yeah, it's a little bit convoluted, but just know when I refer to the main bad guy, I'm talking about the first one, the guy in the middle of the poster right now. And then I'll transition about the new main bad guy when I get to her. So, the bad guy, the main bad guy, talks to his father about his inheritance. I guess there's some sort of syndicate family or something based off the discussions that they were having, or the one that they have when we see them. Meanwhile, we cut to Chloe and Sully talking about Nate's brother, so we know that Sully and the brother traveled together at some point. But Nate is in the dark about all of this currently. Meanwhile, for some reason, the bad guy talks to his father again about sort of the same thing about the inheritance. However, this time around, he has his father killed by the new main bad guy, this lady co-worker, the bald woman at the bottom of the poster there. So anyways, Nate, while in the church, he finds a poster card matchup. The one that he has and one of the ones that are in the area. And this is where they start to find the puzzle of the keys. At least the start of it. So, Sully takes and put one key, and Nate goes with Chloe with their key. They end up underground. They end up sort of walking and wandering into this rave party. They use Nate's ability to work at a bar so that he can sort of make his way back there. And he gets attacked again. She uses the key, and they both escape right before they're viciously attacked once more. However, the area that they end up in, the water is rising, and on the opposing side above is Sully, who is stopped by the new main bad guy, the woman, main bad guy. And he barely manages to help Nate and Chloe get out of their situation. They use their keys together to combine them to unlock the thing. They enter a room filled with huge urns, which they crack and find out that they're filled with salt. When they find a map contained within, Chloe holds up a gun, still not trusting these two, wants in for herself. She knocks Nate out, and when he wakes up, he's in the presence of Sully, who somehow just made his way down there somehow, even though he was struggling to get up down there before. So, Chloe, as we see, apparently also works under the first main bad guy, our Antonio Banderas. And Nate wants to, even though he is having more and more trouble with Sully along this journey, he still wants to finish what his brother started. That's more important than anything, as he keeps alluding to throughout the movie. So they travel to some area called Kiamba, I believe it's called, where the bad guys are in the lead of where they need to go. I believe here's where we see the new bad guy take out the old previous Antonio Banderas bad guy. But before they can do that, Chloe manages to sneak away because she was also in the area. So Nate and Sully snuck into this little red car, and the car was pulled in. This is where we see them in the plane. We see it in in all of the trailers, where a shootout begins, and all of the big rectangular objects fall out of the airplane and they're like latched onto each other. And Nate like gets hit by a car, the same car that he was just in, that she and that Chloe finds herself in. So this is I think they're trying to go for a very Uncharted scene in this particular part of the movie. As again, while I'm not familiar with the games, I'm familiar enough to know that the Uncharted series has these over bombastic like set pieces. So I'm assuming that's what they were going for. A little absurd, but it does get even more absurd though. And so while Nate is lambasted into the air while in midair, Chloe ends up on one of the containers that's falling. He gets hit by one of the containers and he's like free falling. She manages to somehow catch him in the air, which is insanity on how lucky that is. And he manages to pull the thing. That particular box happens to also have a parachute on it, which I don't think the other one did. At least I'm not sure it did. So the amount of luck that this scene has is unbelievably lucky. And so they manage to hit the water just in time, but safely enough. So the two of them are sort of just looking out where they are, but they find land relatively quickly, which is another lucky thing, building on that luck. And while they are on the beach, I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to assume that this is the case, Nate bumps into a particular guy who somehow calls out that he's been in a similar situation to this. And I'm assuming that is the voice actor for Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. I'm gonna assume that's the case. I'm not 100%. Again, I've never played the game, so I can't confirm. But I'm gonna assume that's the case. Anyway, despite all that, little nod, they end up sort of making their way into a room while the new main bad guy, is doing her own thing. So, while Chloe's resting up, Nate is obsessed, and he's looking at all the notes that he's been given from his brother. He burns them, like the equivalent to how he did in the beginning of the movie, finds a hidden message about the keys, and how the keys can combine into one key, and he writes a note to Chloe, giving her, as we later learn, the wrong coordinates on purpose, I guess, because she just did the whole thing she did, so he gets a little payback. By the way, they know each other's location, because earlier at some point Nate gave Sully his location via phone. So they all have that. So they all eventually figure out where each other are at some point in the movie with the phone. And this will be her turn as when they get separated. Anyway, so as Nate makes his way onto the boat on this hidden moat in this hidden cave, Sully comes up behind him using the thing I just talked about, the phone application, and he, along with Nate, hide from the incoming bad guys who have kind of glanced their location and were moving in toward it. So they start to grab weapons. They fend off the bad guys. They begin climbing up as the bad guys have strapped these two large boats to these helicopters. And it's a scene where they are fighting these people on these boats while they're being hooked on by these helicopters. So another, I'm assuming, trying to achieve a very Uncharted, like, this is an amazing set-piece scene. It does definitely look a little wild, as they are carrying these large boats. So Nate and Sully climb up, Sully all the way up to the helicopter. He, like, takes over one. Nate stays behind or below. And during the adventure, it just so happened that he was wearing white, and he puts on the brown straps, which is what I would assume is the iconic Nathan Drake look, based on the video game character look. So by the end of the movie, he ends up achieving at least the look of the character to its completion, which I guess gets people excited just to get to that point. You know, and it's like, okay, that's fine. Anyway, so the main bad guy finds out that this is happening. She's on the other boat, so they're competing on various boats, on these two boats. They hit up against each other. Nate loads up a cannon, fires it at the other one. Only the main bad guy is left. They try to fight her. He tries to fight her off. And Sully, in a surprise, because he's always been obsessed with getting the gold and sort of leaving people behind, as the story he's been implementing throughout the story, decides to help out Nate when he's, like, dangling for dear life. He has the gold. He makes that typical decision where you could either choose the gold or choose Nate. He chooses Nate, sacrifices the gold. He throws the gold at her. She is forced to let go of him. Sully grabs Nate, and she is not safe as the boat lands on her, like the whole boat, because it unattaches from the helicopter. So Chloe finds them using the tracker that I just mentioned, while the two are up there on the helicopter, and Nate had kept some of the gold on his person, so he hands it over to Sully, kind of be like, here, this is what I got. And Sully's like, yes, I also get paid. And then it shows the Uncharted logo. However, the movie has a little teaser, because I'm guessing they're trying to push an Uncharted movie series as well. In a jail cell, we see the brother writing a new note, and it's obviously the brother because he's writing on a little, like, posted card note. And that is the end of the Uncharted movie. So, I would say, in terms of just being a movie, not, you know, comparing it directly to the video game, because, again, I wouldn't know, I would say it's actually not that bad, which would make it another not bad video game movie. I mean, I wouldn't say it's great, but I would give it like a 6 out of 10, which is pretty good. You know, there are a few mistakes here and there. There are a few, like, my suspension of disbelief is being pushed because they're trying to do the Uncharted thing, and at some points they're doing it a little bit too, like, there's a bit too much luck, like when they're falling out of the plane. Like that, for example, is a big example of that. But outside of that, pretty good. So, people need to stop the narrative that all video game movies are bad, because that shit hasn't been true, like, for years. Years and years that has not been true. It has not been true since, like, Silent Hill, which came out in, like, what, 2016? 2017? I don't even remember. And, you know, there are other video game movies, but again, we're talking about objectively good, which is a hard thing to distinguish between, subjective liking a movie. But anyways, 6 out of 10. Again, not bad. So, we're now in a new precipice, once again, where we have to say, surprise, surprise, not all video game movies are bad. And that is my full review of the Uncharted movie. So if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page, third to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated, help support the channel, and can make me play various video games or do specific movie reviews. But more importantly, help support the channel. And with all that shilling, that'll close out this review. So until next time, everyone, bye-bye.